All right, all right. Welcome to Let's Talk Liberty. We got our special guest, Pastor Arch, in the studio with us again today. And I know you guys had a lot of questions for him. So we're going to go over some of those questions today. How are you?
Good.
You know, to start us out, I wanted you to give us, well, first of all, do you have a drink?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, you're still good? All right. Pastor Judah, if we got to refresh this man, just
all right.
Keep an eye on it. I wanted to start out with an update on where we're at with some macro things. You were just telling us about the debt and what each person would owe. If you don't mind, kind of talk about that.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is as of January, because they only have the yearly debts at the end of the year. We were on December 31. Okay, at the end of December 31st of 2021, the U.S. had had $193 trillion in assets.
Okay.
Now that includes all the land, all the government land, all the private land, all the citizens' land, everything.
Okay.
It includes stocks, bonds, real estate. It includes factories. It includes savings accounts, checking accounts, banks. Everything that every American owns.
Okay.
In January was $193 billion.
Or
trillion dollars.
Yep.
Okay. Now since then, the stock market has dropped a lot. Cryptos have dropped a lot, but the debt's gone up. The debt in January was $259 trillion. So if the debt in January was $259 trillion and we were worth $193 trillion, that means that we were $66 trillion behind in January.
Yeah.
So now we know for sure the numbers are a lot greater than that. The spread is a lot greater because none of the assets we had in January has appreciated.
Now that number,
the debt.
Just so I understand, that 259 trillion, those are unfunded liabilities, but
it includes unfunded
okay.
liabilities.
So it's not just the debt clock. If you go to debtclock.com or whatever, it's
debt
also,
clock is 90 trillion. Unfunded liabilities is when you have promised, like for example, Social Security.
Social Security.
What do we have in money to pay Social Security? And we don't have it.
Got it.
What do we have?
But it's still on our balance sheet as a liability.
That's correct.
Got it.
That's correct. So it is a debt that we have, but
now with that first number in terms of the value of the U.S., does it take into consideration cash flow, like future payments or anything like that, or is it just it's like a snapshot, just the assets that we own?
It's if you fill out a financial statement for a bank.
Okay.
Okay. So all the assets that you own, the government owns, every corporation owns, and every individual owns.
So if we were a house, we'd be bankrupt. If we were a business, we'd be totally underwater. Why is the U.S. Why hasn't it manifested on the macro level for the U.S. or is it going to, or is it happening now? What does that look like?
Most definitely is going to. The reason it has it now is because we can print money. As long as we can print money, here's a good illustration. We've all known people who kept getting credit cards. Every time they get a new credit card application, they fill it out and they pay the payments until eventually they quit getting new credit cards and they're broke. Okay,
Yeah.
So that's where we're at in our country today. We can print money as long as there's people to buy it.
Wow.
And as whether it's other countries or individuals, people to buy it, we can get it. But we're getting near the end of people being willing to buy it. We've already passed the point that foreign countries aren't buying it anymore. So now most of our money that we're printing is just going into debt.
Wow.
And we'll print money to pay our bills that we owe the debt on. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a crazy system. So for your average American watching this right now, what do you? And I know we've kind of talked about this last time, but now we have you for round two. We've got these ideas exposed to us. What's the play here? I know you talked about gold and silver. You talked about getting out of debt last time. Has any of that changed? And also a related question is, how long do we have until the dollar is crashed?
Well, if you go what the globalists say, they say May 9, 2023, that the dollar will be dead. And these are the people who are trying to kill it.
Okay.
And I'm talking about the World Economic Forum. The people that all your people are familiar with, they claim that they'll be able to kill our economy totally, our dollar, by May 9 of 23. But as far as everything crashing, in the past, one advantage of being 70 years old, we've seen a lot of cycles. Okay, first one was the first year we got married. We went through a recession, so we've seen quite a few recessions. I have seen quite a few recessions. I have not seen a depression because the last depression we had was 1929. This depression will be bigger than what we had in 1929. The advantage of living through this is you see them in advance when they're coming.
Yeah.
Anytime that you've experienced something multiple times, you kind of look for it.
You know the symptoms.
That's correct. And we should have had this correction in 2015. We should have had it corrected in 2008 when it crashed last time. But we printed money out of it. You only had all the debts.
Kick the can down the road, make the problem worse.
Instead of having a 50-year jubilee like the Israelis did, they cancel all debt, we just printed up and made more debt. So we took out more credit cards. All right? We found out that 3 credit cards weren't enough, so we picked out 6 more.
Wow.
That addition.
Wow.
And we kept doing that. So this should have crashed a long time ago, and it would have been far better for our country if it would have crashed then, because we'd be covering on our way now. The longer that we have kicked the can down the road, which is an accurate expression, the worse it's going to be. And we're kind of at that point now where we can't kick it down anymore because nobody's buying our debt.
Yeah.
And also, in the last recessions that we had, foreign countries bailed us out. I can remember back in '88 that the Japanese bailed us out. And everybody was so worried because Japanese were buying up all our real estate. They're buying the Sony building. They're buying all of New York and and L.A. And everybody says, "Oh, what about the Japanese are just taking over our country." Well, 2 years later, we're buying it. They went broke because they did the same thing, and we're buying everything back on 30 cents on the dollar. But China, the last recession that we had, 2008 to 2010, China bailed us out.
Wow.
And because they bought our debt. Europeans have bought our debt in the past. So since 1929, we've had quite a few recessions, but not a depression, because we've not had it before where this is a global collapse this time. So there's no other country that's going to bail us out. And the only reason our dollar is high yet is because, I think I should have said last show, most foreigners don't think that our government is as stupid as theirs, and we are. We're worse. We just, because we had the petrodollar after World War II, we got the petrodollar, which means all petroleum needs to be bought and sold with the dollar, and now they're totally ignoring that too. Wow. So China, Russia, they're all accepting any currency now for trade. So the petrodollar is already dead, and the rest of the dollar will be going down the hill real quick. Today, however, though, there was a big interest increase. Everybody's expected, somewhere between a 30-point and a 50-point, which is 0.3% or 0.5%. Instead, we had a 75-point, which is a 7.5%.
Wow.
0.75% increase. That means that the interest that you're going to be paying on your home loans, on your car loans, on every other loan that you have is going to start going up dramatically. Historically, gold and silver go up dramatically when interest rates go up.
Right.
Stock market goes down, gold and silver goes up. This time it hasn't happened yet, although it will very soon. In fact, silver went up quite a bit today, just an announcement. The only reason it happened is in the past, when the stock market looked really bad, 2010, 88, 98, 94, all these other years when we had this, when that started happening, people started buying gold and silver. This time, because crypto was sold as a really safe investment.
A hedge, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That people started buying cryptos instead of buying gold and silver. A lot of the people who normally would have gotten gold and silver bought cryptos. So gold and silver hasn't taken off yet. But with the huge crash that cryptos had in the last 2 weeks, it's enormous. If any of you have crypto, I'm sorry in advance, but Warren Buffett had on his show, he had all his investors that came into his place into Omaha, Nebraska here about a month ago. And the investors, because he's got the largest investment fund that there is, and at the end, they asked him on stage, "What do you think of cryptocurrencies?" And he and Charlie Ward started laughing back and forth. He said, "That's the biggest..."
Yeah, won't touch it.
Yeah. He says, "There's nothing there. What are you buying when you're buying a crypto? A sequence of numbers.
Yeah.
What is there?" And it was the week after that we saw the huge drop, the first huge drop in Bitcoin. And I think everybody sees the handwriting on the wall. There are still some people who are saying, well, Bitcoin's had a big correction. All cryptos have had a big correction, so now's a good time to get in. I kind of feel Warren Buffett that it's going to zero. He said on the show that he wouldn't give $25 for every cryptocurrency in the world combined.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So, but anyway, that's Warren Buffett, and he's known for being pretty good.
I would say he's had a pretty good track record. And, what cryptos haven't experienced is a full-out assault from the legislative, branch of a big government. So if that were to happen, which you could see that it very well might happen, it would be, I think, a jugular shot to the crypto.
Well, the other thing is that China has already, they don't allow their citizens to own it anymore.
Yep.
And a lot of the bases or the crypto banks, I'm going to use that word for it, that hold it and buy and sell it for you now have frozen trading, so that even if you haven't want to sell it, they don't allow you to trade in your own account. So that's pretty much the death nail on the head. It's just a matter of time, and it could be in the very near future where crypto's gone. So you'll see a dead cat bounce every once in a while. A dead cat bounces means it goes down, but it doesn't come up very high. Live cat will take off, but dead cat doesn't. So we'll see some dead cat bounces where Bitcoin, the other cryptos, will bounce up a little bit and then take another big drop down again. But I'm not an investor in crypto, so But that explains why gold and silver hasn't taken off yet.
Yeah, it's just they went to cryptos, but now that cryptos maybe revealed themselves as not reliable, we can expect that capital coming into gold and silver.
Yeah, and gold and silver has a 3,000-year track record.
Yeah,
cryptos have about a 10-year track record. So 3,000 year, every currency, every country, everybody who's gone broke, including Egypt when Moses took people out and God said, "Take your gold and silver with them."
Yep.
It pretty much says it. So. The markets will go back to gold and silver again in the very near future. So that's the update on that.
Well, hey, thank you, YouTube, for your comments. I see you, Facebook. Welcome. Tell me, Pastor Arch, about this. If you don't know about it, it's okay. It just came to mind when you were talking. I heard that the Federal Reserve contract ended. And they didn't renew it. This is part of the Q stuff. I know we're not going to get totally into Q today. For all you Q people, we're going to do a whole broadcast on Q. So we'll just touch on this one thing real quick. But who hiked the rates? Was it the chairman of the Fed? Was it the Fed that hiked the rates by 75%?
It's the Feds all meet together. So it's not one person. One person announces it, but it's a group of investors, which many of them are not Americans.
Is there any credibility to that? The news that's out there that says the Fed contract this ended and they didn't renew it, or is that?
Let's wait for that next show. What I'd like here, if you have any questions on on Q, or any of those conspiracy theories, type them today.
Yeah.
So that when I come back next time, I can bring back some evidence and not just say this is what my thing.
And then we'll devote a whole program to it, so that way we're just hitting it, because I know it'll gobble up all our time today. So let's not go down that rabbit trail.
And I just want to be prepared so that we can answer the questions and have evidence to back it up.
So if you guys have questions, you can type them in the comments. We're watching. Pastor Judah's watching the comments right now. We'll write them down for next broadcast. You can always, if you're watching this on replay, you can always go to the website and shoot them there. Let'sTalkLibertyToday.com and submit that form, and then we'll have the question ready for the next time. Hey, if you guys are on Facebook, share the broadcast. Let's get some live viewers in here. Hey, everybody. Hey, Robert. Hey, Brittany. Hey, BC. Hey, Maite. Hey, Gregory. Welcome, everybody. Okay, so I first want to hold this up. Now, this is a DVD, and you can also see a version of this on YouTube. Now, if you'll notice in Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble right now, I put a YouTube link in the description. You can look at it right now of the live video. In fact, Pastor Judah, could you make a comment and pin the comment? Can you do that here actually, or you can do it there? I can probably do it. What I want you to do is there's an amazing watch that YouTube link. I won't give you too many details, but I do want to just give you an opportunity to share a bird's eye view. Pastor Arch went on this crazy awesome expedition and discovered the real Noah's Ark, and actually has some of it. You have some of it today, is that right?
We did, yeah. But what I would like to do is, the link tells a story about our expedition. In 2006, we were on an expedition to find Noah's Ark, and it was amazing because I was on TV more than 500 times when it came back from all over the world. I'd have the news from London, from Australia, from Brazil, all over wanted to hear the story. So we put it on YouTube, and we brought back the evidence, the pieces, and I have them with. But what I'd like people to do is, between now and the next time I come, watch it and then write down your questions. and that way when the questions come up, we can
That's
answer
right.
the questions directly. So it's the Noah's Ark. It's or you can just Google Arch, not Google, but go to
YouTube.
YouTube and put a search Arch Bonnema Noah's Ark. There's several of them on there. Look at the one that's around 58 minutes. It tells the whole story, and we'll have the pieces here, and we can discuss it and all the evidence when that comes in.
I'm telling you, me and Sonia just watched it, and it was so awesome. And it leads me to my actual next question. So you were just telling Judah and I a second ago kind of about your background, and I know that was a big question we got last time is who are you? Where'd you come from a bit? For those of you who don't know, Arch, I just wanted you to give an opportunity, kind of your story a little bit. You don't have to go into crazy detail, but...
Well, just to talk about the Noah's Ark one yet, the video that you're going to watch was made 10 days after we got back. So it talks about the expedition, why we went, where we went, what we went for, and what we found, but we hadn't sent all the evidence to the different labs. And that's why the next time I come back, we're going to have the evidence from the different labs. And so it still tells the whole story of how we found it, where it was, and why we went there. But exactly what it was that we found will be on the next show. So as far as...
Oh, Gregory actually... Gregory, did you watch the YouTube link? Did you find it? He said, I like the animal poop rock you found. So he must have watched some of it.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I have that back. I have it with me tonight. But like I said, I'd rather have everybody watch it, write down your questions, and I can come over here and answer all the questions, because I have done thousands of those all over the world, all over the U.S.
Yeah, that's cool.
I just today... I spoke at 5 Quaker churches in Winchester, Indiana, 10 years ago, and they just contacted me again today. They watched me on YouTube, on Facebook. They follow me on Facebook all the time. I didn't know Quakers had Facebook, but they watched it on Facebook all the time. But 5 churches got together, and it was just a fabulous time. But 10 years later, all of a sudden, they text me today, we're still watching you on Facebook all the time.
Oh, cool.
So, you asked about my life. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota, about 540 people. So it's not a, in the Bible, they always God used nobodies. I think God did this so that no one could take credit that they were so brilliant and got it done. So I grew up in a small town, Minnesota, never graduated college, went to college, never graduated college, but I was willing. And when I made that expedition, a lot of reporters asked me afterwards, why you? I mean, that's been thousands of years since Noah's Ark. Why you and why now? And the first couple times I didn't have an answer, but finally I realized, well, the real reason, first of all, why me is because I was nobody and I was willing. I wonder how many people that God called before to do it and didn't, but were willing. But why now? Because I believe that we're in the very last days.
Yeah. And
God wants to give the evidence, everybody the chance to see. This evidence proves that the Bible story of Noah's Ark is true.
Wow.
And I've had many people who've been to church all their lives. After giving a presentation, they said, Mr. Bonnema, I have been in church decades, and I still always wondered if the Bible is really true and God's really true. And after seeing the evidence, this proves that story's true. Well, if it proves the Noah's Ark story is true, there's more to the Bible.
Yeah.
And one of it is Jesus coming back again. All through the Old Testament talks about Jesus coming back again. And, of course, that happens in the New Testament. But all through the Bible, there's evidence that, the Bible's true.
Well, yeah, it really it challenged me, first of all. There were some things that I thought I knew about Noah's Ark. And when I watched your presentation, I realized, I had certain things just wrong. Other things, my understanding was deepened. But at the end of it, what I was really left with was a sense of awe, like the glory of God. Like this really happened, here, and I love when you tell the story of the man, the local, who says, you're here to see Noah's Ark.
The Sherpa, yes.
Yeah, the Sherpa.
The grandfather. We had because I'm going to tell a quick story on this one. We went to Iran. Now, everybody says, why'd you go to Iran? It's in Turkey. Don't you? Everybody knows it's in Turkey. No. Genesis 6 talks about when the ark took off. And
you got the Bible changed. I thought that was so cool, too.
Not many people do that. Yeah. But here's a really good one. I didn't know this until recently. Well, recently, 10 years ago. But how many days and nights did it rain?
And see, I would have always answered 40.
Because that we always learn.
Yeah.
In Genesis 7 verse, I think it's 14, isn't it? Well, I gotta look it up. It's in Genesis 7. It rained 40 days and 40 nights, and then the ark started to rise. In other words, at that point, it started to level. At the very end of it, the very last verse, which is Genesis 7, verse 24, the waters prevailed, rained on the earth for 150 days.
Yeah, so it was...
So it was 40 days and 40 nights. Here it is in verse 17. So in the same chapter, on 17, it says, now the water was on the earth for 40 days, and the waters increased and lifted up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. So for 40 days it rained before the ark started to float. But in the same chapter, 7 verses later, it rained for 150 days and nights. And yet, when I asked in church,
everybody says 40 days, 40 nights.
even the pastors, 40 raise your hand if you knew that it was already 40 days and 40 nights. Every hand goes up. Yeah, you're all wrong. Look at the Bibles right here.
Same paragraph. I mean,
it's for the same reason you're wrong that it's not in Turkey.
Yeah.
Because it didn't get till the 13th century when Marco Polo went to China. As he went to China, he went through Turkey. The Armenians said, we believe Noah's Ark is in this mountain. So
that's why I named
Marco Polo said, oh, that must be Noah's Ark, and wrote that on the map.
Yeah.
We have maps from 900 BC to 1100 AD that all show Noah's Ark in Iran.
Yeah.
Now the mountain range goes all the way from eastern Iran to western Turkey. The whole range is called Ararat. It's the mountains, plural, of Ararat. So the ark didn't come to rest on Mount Ararat. It came to rest in the mountains of Ararat. Wow. And the actual mountain was Mount Soliman, which, by the way, is the only peak in the whole entire mountain range with a Jewish name.
Jewish name,
yeah. So it's impossible. In the video, we tell why it's impossible for it to be in
the
Turkey.
the direction that they turned. I thought all that was so well done, and again, it provided me with correction, with deepened knowledge, and then again, the coolest thing for me was the sense of wonder, and it brought me into a place of awe that the Lord used you in this mighty way, and you risked your life to do it. That was a whole cool part of it too. I love the Pentagon individual that told you, hey, get your affairs in order. I mean, if you don't mind, just share that little story. I know I don't want to go too much into it, but
when I went to the highest government officials, they said, talking about getting there, because this is in 2006, and it looked like Israel and Iran are going to war any day, and we, of course, if you remember the days of Jimmy Carter when he left all the hostages there. So I wanted to ask, how safe is it to go there? And they said, absolutely not. Don't go there. And if you go against our advice and go anyway, make sure you have your affairs in order, because you're not going to come back. So,
wow.
I came home and told my wife, and she was very relieved when I told her I wasn't going to go, because they told me not to go. But then God told me I needed to go, and my wife equally respected that.
Wow.
And she said, well, you can't stay here. If God told you to go, you need to go. I did not go against my wife's wishes. She just, and back then she was in a car accident with a broken back and a broken neck, and that's when I had to go, the opportunity to go, and she said go. So I credit her with as much as she took as big or bigger risk than I did, because if I would have died, I'd have been in heaven. She had to suffer over here by herself.
Wow. One of the things that happens when we hang out, Pastor Arch, is I begin to dream bigger. I begin to think all things are possible. You've had an extraordinary life story. To share a little bit about the you've been on a mission trip. How many mission trips? What did that look like? How many countries? If you don't mind, share a little bit about a bird's eye view of what that's been like.
Well, my wife and I got married in 1974, so it's 47 years this year. And we've gone on a mission trip every month for 27 years.
Wow.
And they're all self-funded. I owned my own company, my own business. And it seemed like every time I left, because this is the worst time to leave. I had a big problem I had to deal with, or I had a big opportunity I was going to miss. But I never came home thinking, I sure wish I would have stayed home, Wow. And sometimes it seemed like, well, I missed that opportunity, or something blew up while I was gone. But we did it. Yeah. And out of those more than 350 trips, my wife went with me on all but 2 of them. And I think that's quite a testimony for her also. And we should have her on here one of these nights, because she slept in tents on the Masa Mara, and she's been in mud huts and slept in mud huts, and we've been in palaces of kings. So we've been at one extreme to the other. But we've been in 106 countries, some of them many times. And we haven't traveled this year because of the lockdowns. I'm not willing to get vaccinated, and that's required. The countries that we want to go to, we have to be vaccinated to go to. And we're hoping that that'll get exposed by this summer, this fall, and those restrictions will go off. But fortunately, thanks to the internet, I talk to them every day. So all the churches and all the people, all the pastors that we work with, I talk to every single day. And we've been averaging more than 100 baptisms. We've got about 50 churches that we've started just in 2 countries, just between Pakistan and Nepal in 2022. And we're doing about 100 baptisms a week. And they just had the Southern Baptist Convention. Yeah. So if any of you were watching that the last week on TV. But the Southern Baptists did a poll amongst their churches and found out that 61% of the churches, of the Southern Baptist churches, did not even have 1 baptism a year.
Wow.
And we're doing these churches where people or pastors are getting killed for the faith. We're having 100 a week.
Wow.
So when they make their profession of faith there, they make it publicly in the city square, in the water fountain, not the fountain, but it's a pump and a drinking tank for all the animals. That's where we baptize the people there. Or we do it in the river, which is publicly there. So right in front of everybody, They say, we're going to serve God. Even knowing that local pastors have been beaten to death weeks before.
Wow. And how many churches have you planted, roughly?
Oh, I have no idea. We built more than 100, well over 100 buildings. That was 3-4 years ago. We passed the 100 mark. I don't keep track anymore, because when God told David, don't keep track of your people, don't account, it was because he didn't want them to get, what's the word I'm trying to think of, but big, because we have all these people.
Puffed up or arrogant.
Yeah, so we passed 100, and after that I quit counting. We built so many orphans and widows' homes. We built churches. We built schools. We built all different. We even have our first senior citizens. We built that one in India. It's called Silver Lining Senior Citizens Home, because everybody wants to take care of the kids and the babies, and yet we got millions and we have billions of senior citizens that are living in the streets all over the world. They don't have Social Security like we have in the U.S., and they're not. So we built our home there, and it's just fabulous how that's happening, because nobody thinks about that. In fact, everybody's surprised, even the local people. Why would you build a home? I mean, why don't you build a home for kids? Why do you build a home for senior citizens? Well, because there's thousands of organizations taking care of kids, and I'm glad they are, and we need more, but nobody's taking care of the senior citizens.
Wow. Yeah. We had a question coming in that I think is a funny question. Are you more of an Indiana and Jones or his father, Sean Connery?
It's been so long since I've watched that, I don't know. I can't answer that one, but yeah.
Hey, and if you are watching, go ahead and share the broadcast and ask your question. We're going to have Pastor Arch for another 30 minutes or so here, and we want to allow him to share life experiences and just overall. Yeah, somebody says, yeah,
Brittany Thompson.
Brittany, yeah, and I know that would mean a lot to you, Brittany and John. They've been missionaries, and so that answer definitely encouraged them.
Where are they missionaries at?
They were missionaries in Ivory Coast and Ghana, West Africa.
Ghana.
Now they're in Fort Worth. They're our friends I was telling you about that lived on property, and they are now in Fort Worth. He brought his guns with him. So.
Well, Ghana, we have an interesting story in Ghana. A friend of mine from Texas, not even a professing Christian, but I met him at a fundraiser for a presidential candidate years ago, 10 years ago, 9 years ago. Anyway, he said to my wife and I, we just come back from Africa, and this is in January, and he says, you're really tan, you come back from Caribbeans? I said, no, we came back from Africa. Well, you on a safari? No, we're just building some orphans and widows homes over there. He says, well, I'm going to Ghana next week. Have you built any there? And I said, no. Would you like to? He said, I'm meeting with the president. It turns out he built the power plants that powered the country. And he says, I'm taking my own plane. If you want to come with us, you can. Well, I've had my own jets, and I know that my jets wouldn't go to Africa and back without, So I know he had a big jet. He says, here's my pilot's phone number. Just call him and set it up with him. So I called up, and turns out his jet was built for a Saudi prince. And when he got it, he decided to go to a 747 instead of a stretched 737. So he bought it from him. So on the flight, it was 3 co-pilots, 3 flight attendants, the owner, his aide, and my wife and I, And we go to Ghana. So there, the first lady, the president and first lady meet us at there. And the first lady knew what we're doing. So she says, we want to show you our government homes. And of course, we went in their government homes. Talk about orphanages, were really nice. One big room, for each kid, all nice and clean. And I said, well, my wife and I do the ones out in the countries. We go in the rural areas, not in the city. And we have a lot of homes there. We want to see them. Oh, no, you don't want to see those. Those are bad. I said, well, that's why we want to go to them, because they're bad. So she said, okay. She says, my driver will take you to some of those. Turns out the driver was the Secretary of Defense that drove us to these places. So the first home that we went to, we're visiting the home. The kids hadn't eaten in 3 days over there, and the kids were really sick. And it's kind of an interesting story, but we sent the driver out to get a bunch of food and come back later. It turns out that, the woman who ran the place was on the internet. She was on not Facebook, but she had one of these social media things, and she contacted me a week or two later and said, the driver of the truck has been back here 2 more times and brought food for us. Out of his own pocket, took his own money. So here's a guy who was not even a professing Christian, but when he saw the needs of his people, he went back there and with his own money bought the food and brought it back and said, don't tell anybody,
Yeah, wow. We got some good questions coming in. Let me pick one there, Pastor Judah. How do you see silver and gold being affected from now until after the stock market crash?
Well, if you look at history, whenever the stock market crashes, there is a lull of maybe a month or two when gold and silver either drops a little bit or doesn't move much. The reason for that was when the stock market starts to drop, people get margin calls. Margin calls are when you only make like a down payment and you got to pay more coming in. And when you have a lot of different stocks, when you sell a stock, they can take up to 84 hours to give you the money for that stock. When there's a margin call, you have 42 hours to pay for it. So the only way they can get cash real quick is to sell gold and silver, because you can get it in 12 hours. So initially, when people start getting margin calls, people are selling their gold and silver because they're going to lose everything they got in the markets. And then all of a sudden, one day you have a big drop, $3,000-$4,000 in a day, and then the next day $1,500, then a small dead cat bounce, and then it continues down. When that happens, when you have the one day of a big drop, is when people give up on market crashes. When they can't, on margin calls. When they give up on the margin calls is when when gold and silver really take off, because people look for security. And if you look past the last 3,000 years, the only investment that's survived every country, every currency, everything that's ever happened is gold and silver. And just like, we joked about when Moses took people out of Israel, what did God say?
Yeah. Take
the gold and silver with you. So, many examples in the Bible where God used that. Although God warns us not to be, our trust is not to be in gold and silver.
Yeah.
But gold and silver is to be used, in our case that we're doing. We have a lot of gold and silver because we have a lot of ministries that we're funding, and we want to be able to continue funding when the crash goes. So we have more than what we need for us, but we are still funding a lot of ministries, and we don't want that to stop when it crashes. So the answer to the question, when's it going to happen? I think in the very near future, we're very close to seeing that one-day big crash, because the markets have dropped the largest percentage it's ever had in history without a big crash.
Wow.
We've had some bigger drops, but we've always had a big crash before. So now it's just been drifting down fast, but pretty soon it's going to turn into an avalanche.
Next question, which is related: how do you get your funds for homes, wells, etc.? Are they from donations or from your business? Miss Brenda asks.
Well, they're from our business. We were with your family the other day because your church gave us enough money to buy some Bibles, 100 Bibles for baptism. Whenever we baptize people, we like to give them a Bible. We actually use an audio Bibles because it's in their own language, and a large percentage of the people that we're giving the Bibles to can't read or write in their own language. So we have audio Bibles that are solar powered, and they are shockproof, and they're waterproof, and a whole family or the neighbors can listen at one time. They can search through it by book or by chapter, or they can go through the Bible that way, and they cost $6. So
cool.
If you buy them in the U.S., they're $24 to $67. When I looked on the internet, the same one that we sell that you go on the internet for $67, we're buying for $6. You know, but they last a long time, so it's a good investment.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, that's what Pastor Arch and his wonderful wife Sherry are doing. We believe in personally. Now, if you want to be a part of that, if you see that as a good investment as well, Pastor Jude is going to put your Gmail. Is that right?
Yeah, although I didn't answer the question yet. Your church and one other individual who you met.
Yep.
The only two donors that we had so far this year. And that was the other donor gave us $600, but we had someone from Minnesota give us $60, so pretty much it's just been for my own business.
Wow.
And my business experience. We've been self-funding our ministry, so.
And at one point you had over 1,000 employees. Tell us a little bit about that. Wow.
Well, I'm just showing him a picture right now of a man holding a Bible, and it looks like a stack of shredded papers, and yet for him, that Bible is so important to him. It's barely held to God, but he's read it so many times. So it shows how they value the Bibles. And I have many times when people, when they're given the Bibles, they're just weeping and crying when they're given the audio Bibles. We got hundreds of those pictures because...
Pastor Judah, I just emailed that to me. If you can pull up the email and throw it into this presentation, I'll pull up that picture. That's a powerful picture. I want the people to be able to see it. So what you'll do is you'll go over... But we can keep going on this, but he'll pull that up in the meantime. What a powerful picture. But so the audio Bible, what I love about it is, like you said, the whole family can gather around and they can actually listen together at the same time.
What's kind of fun is I preach live to them every week. And when the camera's on them, because when the interpreter holds it, he's looking at me, but I'm looking at the audience, and it's fun to see all those people go through their Bibles.
Yeah.
And did it, because when I started doing this, they didn't have any, and now if they have a written word, they'll be flipping through it, but they've already learned real quickly. If I tell them, Matthew 24 or 27, they can go through it all faster than I can on here. They can find it in the audio Bible and go through it. Did you give them my email address?
So archbonnema@gmail.com.
Yeah, that's right. If you don't mind, put that in the comments. So if you want to be a part of sowing into this, it's really good soil. In fact, I was telling Pastor Arch, we built a well, I think it was in 2016, through an organization called Gospel for Asia. Not bashing the organization, it was a wonderful experience. We did some cows, some chickens, some sewing machines, some startup funds for businesses. But the well was around $2,000 back in 2016. When I first met Pastor Arch and he told me we're building wells for $500. That's after the inflation. That's after all the what they've done to the currency. Think about how efficient. And he explained to me it's because they don't have all the overhead. They don't have all the central office. They're not paying for all.
We have no salaries. Yeah, we have no salaries. We have no travel expenses. My wife covered everything. Actually, we have no donors. So if you want to be some of the first donors, we got a couple in Texas that help us a little bit. One in Arkansas, one in Minnesota, and that's it. And I'm very, very appreciative of them, but we have not asked for money. But if you do want to help us, send it to yours. Don't send it to me. If you want to sponsor, send to.
If you sow a seed through Let's Talk Liberty, put in the memo line, Pastor Arch, and we'll know exactly where to send that. Okay, and of course we have Cash App, Venmo, we have everything set up, PayPal, and there's a bunch of ways you can give. You can go to the website and find out that. Okay, this is a related question, and again, and we have some more coming in, so I'm not ignoring your questions. I just want to stay a little bit focused on this thread. You come from tell us a little bit about in a sense, your pedigree, like what incubated this kind of mindset that said, you know what, I'm gonna go after the big things that God's called me to. I'm I'm gonna dream with God and I'm gonna go after it. You know what? I'm just personally interested, but I know this question came in different forms through our viewers, and I'm doing my best to articulate it. But what produced you?
Well, I was very fortunate. I grew up in a family that, in a small town, 450 people in Minnesota, small little community, one church in the whole town, and everybody went to that church. It's real unusual. But my parents, my grandparents on both sides, we visited every Sunday. We'd see it during the week. I mean, little town, only a few blocks away, everybody was. But they were also always very interested and very involved in missions. My one grandfather sold his farm, retired at age 51, and self-funded his way into missions until he died at 74. And my other grandfather kept working until he died at 93 years old and gave away tremendous amounts of money because that's what he felt that God had given him the skill was in business. So he used his skill for funding other missions.
Wow.
So then when I was 19 years old, I was going to go to Hong Kong to start Youth for Christ International in Hong Kong. And we had an international school that had students with 118 different countries, so they taught in English. So I went and started it there, and when I looked at the globe and I found out that Hong Kong is the other halfway around the world from Minnesota, I thought, I might as well see the rest. So I had a backpack and sleeping bag, and that's where I went. 1972 and 73, I spent 5 months in Hong Kong, but the rest of the time I'm going to travel around the world by myself.
Wow.
And I ran into lots of mission groups, and I saw, first of all, how tremendously effective mission programs are, because you get so much more bang for the buck. I hate to use that word, but it's a good description. You can accomplish so much compared to what churches spend here on normal things for kids' activities. You can plant churches. Like I said, the well. The $500 a well is because that's what it costs for the equipment to put it in the ground. The pump and everything, and for $500, and nobody gets a salary. Nobody gets paid. No travel expenses. No nothing. So all of it goes to the people. When we build the orphan homes for the local churches and stuff, the people provide the labor. I provide the materials, and we build the homes for them. Also, when they do that, if they're the ones providing the labor, it becomes personal to them. It's their home that they built. It's their children's home. It's their orphanage. It's not the Americans came and did it for us. We just buy the materials for it, and they provide the labor for it.
And if you don't mind, can I send that picture again from your phone? I don't think it went through.
Sure.
Because that was a really cool picture. Yeah, let me see that.
Okay, I'm gonna send it to Lucas again.
Okay. You're awesome. Thank you. Yep, there it came. Okay, next question from the audience here. Going back to gold and silver, do you have a personal estimate of where the prices for those two will be after the crash? Can you give us like your personal gut on
how far after the crash? Adjust to see what we've never had before is there is so incredibly much paper gold and paper silver. Paper means it doesn't exist. You have a piece of paper that says someone's holding the gold and silver for you. And it doesn't have to exist because they can sell. You're betting on a future price. You're not buying the silver and the gold, even though some of those will tell you, and wrongly, they'll lie to you, we're holding it here on the counter for you, it's in a vault. They don't. There's now, according to the Bureau of International Settlements, whose responsibility is to keep track of this worldwide, there are 537 ounces on silver on paper for every 1 ounce that exists.
Woo.
I've been a wholesaler for 24 years of gold and silver. I remember the first day it passed 100. I said, there's no way this is going to continue. That all these people in their retirement accounts, their 401ks, they all own lots of gold and silver. Hope the price goes up, I own it. You don't. Because there's an old expression that ownership is 9/10 of the law.
Yeah.
Yeah, on precious metals, it's 100/10 of the law.
Yeah.
It's 100%. The largest bullion bank in Germany, the largest bullion bank in London collapsed in 2019, and in 2015 already the laws changed that whenever you make a deposit, whether it's cash or whether it's metals in a bullion bank means you're putting your gold and silver there to store, belongs to the creditors, not the depositors.
Wow.
That changed. So their families, when this crashed, there was 6-7 generations of families that had put gold and silver in those bullion banks. to take care of their grandkids, great-grandkids, and great-great-great-grandkids, and families lost tens of millions of dollars in one shot. So if you have gold or silver on paper, sell it and buy the physical. I'll be happy to help you. I'm a wholesaler. I'll be happy to get it for you. But the key is just buy physical. If you don't hold it, whoever has it in possession is the one who's going to own it.
Well, we had a comment come in. Warren Buffett just made a physical purchase deal with Bank of America for 1 billion ounces from Berkshire Hathaway.
He's bought a lot.
Wow.
Actually, the biggest buyer of gold and silver in the last 2 years, the biggest buyer has been the central banks.
Because they know it's coming.
What do they know that they're not telling us?
Remember, according to the World Economic Forum, you'll own nothing but be happy.
Well, and soon, I don't know about the happy part, but we will own nothing. That part will be true.
but they'll own all of it, you know.
Adjusted for inflation, silver should be over $400 an ounce right now. If we remove the paper silver and if we only had physical, silver would be over $600 an ounce right now. I don't know where it's going to quit, but it's running $25 an ounce right now. So
with that crazy paper system, so what is I mean, it feels like we have a run on the bank situation where people are starting to say, "Hey, wait a minute, this paper isn't actually there."
That's correct.
So what is that? How does that start? And have you seen that in the past? What does that look like?
Well, if you remember when the banks all crashed in 2008, I lived in Texas at that time, and we had to change bank 3 times in 1 year because the banks closed. So my banks went broke. I would have to stand in line, get a Treasury Department check for my money in that bank, go and start it up in a new bank. And that won't happen this next time because now all the deposits, whether it's a CD or a savings account or a checking account, if you have it with the bank, it belongs to the creditors. It does not belong to you. You can Google it, you can search it, and they will all tell you that that's the truth, that your deposits do no longer belong to you. So if the bank crashes now, you'll have nothing. Whether it's gold or silver, your investment, your brokerage company, whoever has the paper that they sold it to you, their creditors will own the physical.
Wow.
And that's a huge difference because, again, a lot of people are buying gold and silver on paper thinking they're protected, and they're not. They'll lose it completely. And it's already happened. Since it's already happened, we don't have to say it might happen. The 2 largest already did.
I'm going to pull up these pictures. They're so cool. So what I'm about to show you is some pictures of the audio Bibles. We also have a picture of one of the wells. So let me go to slideshow mode here.
Okay. This is what the audio Bible, it's in the box on this one, but again, it's solar powered and it's shockproof, it's waterproof, and has a good speaker on. You can listen to it for the whole room. It's been lasting. We've been doing this for years, and so far they haven't wore out yet. So they last longer than the paper ones do.
Yeah.
It's interesting because the paper ones cost $5. The solar powered electronic ones cost $6, and yet they're outlasting the paper ones. Because if you saw, did you show them the picture of the paper guy?
Yeah.
The Bible?
Let me pull that up too. So
This baptism right now that's on the screen right now. This is at the public watering place, in the town. And so when the people are getting baptized, it's not in a little church where nobody knows it.
Right, it's out in the open.
It's in the city square. It's the fountain in City Square where they get their water. So
that's the real deal. So now
that was last Saturday, by the way.
Wow.
So that's a recent picture.
So I need to go to.
I'm talking about 5 days ago. What day is it today? I lose my track. It's Wednesday today.
15th, Wednesday.
Yeah. Okay. So that was on the 10th. So that's a current picture.
I got this one. Pastor Judah, can you do this one? I'm going to download that, and then I'm going to do one more.
The next picture he's going to show you is when we plant a church. There's the picture of the guy of the Bible. When we plant a church, we drill a well first, and then on the dedication of the well, all the people in the community come to see the well of fresh water because the only thing they've had up until this point is surface water, which means a pond water, a river, creek, and it's filthy dirty. I mean, that water you can't see. On a clear glass, you cannot see your fingers through the glass. That water is often that dirty. So when they taste the water, this is the first time that they drank clear water. I got a zillion pictures of all the kids. They're so happy. They're playing in it, and they're just, it's the best thing they've ever tasted in their whole life. So when we have the grand opening of the well is the first day of our church. So where the average church in those countries is 11 people, that's their average church because it's a house church. We'll start with 30 people in the first week and then go on from there. So our churches grow really fast because we plant a well. So we have the same number of wells we have churches, and that's how we get the churches planted.
And the image format, I don't quite. Hey, you know what you can do, Pastor? Do this. Do a screenshot of it. This will be cool.
Now, is this what people see over here right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna get it up on there in just 1 second.
Okay.
I'm doing a ninja move real quick. We're gonna get it there though. So then there's
the picture you're gonna see is what we've seen hundreds of times. Here's a guy who's bringing out his Bible. The Bible is in shreds if you look at it. Often the covers and stuff, the pages are pulled out of it and everything, but they read them and read them and read them, and they share them around to different people. But that's the picture. That's how much they value their Bibles.
Just like that. Look at that.
Yes, and considering what, Bibles today, people throw them away. We give them away out at different places, and they throw them away. They cherish their Bibles.
Wow.
And thanks to the internet, we have them in 1,700 different languages and dialects.
Wow.
So every place that we go to, we can get an audio Bible. To people who can't even read, they can't write in their own language, we can give them an audio Bible so that they can hear it in their own.
That is so good. I love that so much. Okay, I gotta transition a little bit because there were some questions, and I don't want to ignore these questions. They came in
That's right.
Last broadcast about helpful tips for parents out there, and there's kind of two camps here. There's the still with littles right now, so with little children in the home.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also the grandparent phase. We had a question come in about what is your and it's more just personal testimony. What does your relationship look like with your children, and how how did that look growing up with being so involved in missions with your children? What did that impart to them? If you don't mind sharing a little bit about your journey.
As I mentioned earlier, we had a wonderful situation because I grew up in a Christian community, Christian homes. We read the Bible and prayed at every meal. I mean, every uncle we went to, every home we went to, everybody in our community did it. It was just a normal thing. When every time you ate, as soon as you're done eating, you prayed at the beginning of the meal and you read the Bible at the end. Wow. If we went to someone's house and all they did was pray for the meal, we thought, those backsliders. Not knowing, we just thought everybody did it. And we go away, did you realize that they prayed, but they never read the Bible at it, I grew up with that. So I was very fortunate. I went 12 years to a Christian school, so I was very fortunate to learn the Bible early. We went to church when it was open, and 12 years of Christian school, so I was very fortunate to get a very early start on that. One thing I would like to mention on this today that I've heard many times that people who are doing significant things for God and for the kingdom will often get attacked in three ways. One way they get attacked is in their health. Second way they get attacked is in their finances, because they want to do something that's going to distract them from what they're doing. Mm. And the third way they get attacked is through their family, through their children, through their spouse, through whatever. And in this day and age, we're seeing divorce rates are sky high, problems with kids are sky high. It's just a normal thing. And God gave our kids a free will to make it. Now, we encourage, when the shout out earlier, we have a more control over the life. Mm. But we reach a point where we don't have that control anymore. Mm. And I don't want parents to feel like that you're a failure if your child rebels. Because this is happening. This is happening with really godly men. Godly men that you see on TV every day. And I know personally, who are friends of mine, who've gone through tremendous issues, problems with their own families. And they don't share them on TV most of the time, and share them, but it's there because the devil is trying to stop their work. So more important ever is to spend time with your kids. And when we took those trips overseas, we took our kids, and then we took our grandkids, and now I have a grandson who is in Zambia with his wife full time, and he's 6'5", and he's blonde, and he's white, and his wife is blonde, and she's white. And in Zambia, they're all black. They're not brown, they're black.
Yeah.
And they're short. I mean, they come up to about here on him. He's with all these pastors, and they're up to here on him.
Oh, and I saw pictures. It's a wonderful thing.
And when he was 4 years old, he started going with us. So when Grandpa and Grandma went overseas to fishing, he went, and he loved it, and he always had a passion that he wanted to be a missionary. So now he is. He's a full-time missionary in Zambia.
Wow.
So again, often, and we were talking about this earlier, but kids will, if they grow up with grandparents close by, and we're fortunate that we did, kids will carry on their grandparents' traits more than their parents, because young parents are busy building their family, their business, their house, getting instructed. Whereas grandparents, if you have time to spend with your kids growing up, grandparents can have more of an impact on the kids. And it's tragic today that so many grandparents live so far away from the kids.
Wow, that's a great point.
And don't have an opportunity to do that. I did. I grew up with it. And our kids are close by us for a long time. They don't live now. They live quite a ways away now. But, yeah, we included them in everything. Just like I took my wife with on all of our mission trips, we took grandchildren whenever we could.
Wow.
They're 4 years old on up.
And what would you say to the parent right now that's watching, and specifically the grandparent right now, and they have adult children, and the adult children are maybe lukewarm or not serving the Lord? What would your encouragement and counsel be to someone in that situation?
Well, the Bible says that God gave us a free will. And the seeds that you plant, and I have many friends who had their sons or daughters or grandchildren who turned from the Lord when they're 16, 17 years old and came back, but they kept praying for it, didn't give up. And although it looked like it was never going to happen, all of a sudden they're 31 years old and they call them up and say, I just had an experience with God.
Wow.
And I want to come talk to you. I've had that so many times. So keep praying for them. Don't beat up yourself for what's happened, whether it's your own child or whether it's grandchildren. Keep praying for them. Don't beat yourself up, because they have so many things challenging that we didn't have. I mean, I'm just about 70, but it's just shocking what's going on in the schools and society with kids today and social media that get you plugged in. Don't send them to church. Go with them to church.
Yeah.
Don't send them on a mission trip. Take them with you on a mission trip. And a mission trip could be across town. It doesn't necessarily mean a foreign country. Ours have been foreign countries, but there's so many ministries right in your own community to be involved in.
Yeah.
You can get your kids involved in their own ministries in their own town.
It's true. We were at a house today, and I won't give any too many details, but there were so many. There was just there's a lot of brokenness, a lot of challenge, and we had one of our pastors brought the children along. And it was just awesome. They were in there clean and having a good time, living, experiencing the blessing of giving. It's more blessed to give than it is to receive. And so creating that environment, what a powerful thing. And so, yeah, don't lose hope. I love that counsel, Pastor Arch. Let me make sure I'm not missing any big ones here. If you have your questions, get them in. We only have a few minutes left tonight with Pastor Arch. Now, we're going to have you back. Are you... Should we set a date now, or should we set it offline?
Free next Monday night.
Monday night. I love it. Okay.
Actually, let's do it Monday night. Let's do Noah's Ark. So between now, while it's fresh in your mind, go to YouTube, watch the Noah's Ark, Arch Bonnema and Noah's Ark in the search engine in YouTube, and you'll find it. You find some short ones, too, that the press did that are just like 3-4 minutes long. Look for the ones there's one that's 56 minutes long, one 58 minutes. It's actually the same story, but just was posted at different times. But that tells the story of it. And then when we come back, I'll take my pieces and we'll take the questions at that one.
Cool.
So that's next week, Monday.
Monday at 8 p.m. So, and that's Central Time. Now listen, we pinned, if you're on Facebook, we pinned that YouTube link in the comments. So you can actually click that and go ahead and bookmark the video, save it to watch later. If you're watching and you're not subscribed to Let's Talk Liberty, hit the subscribe with notifications. And that way, when we're on, you'll be notified and you'll make sure to catch it. It's so much better to have you on live. I know a lot of you watch on repeat, a lot of you watch on other platforms. Even if you're watching right now on BitChute, if you're watching this replay, if you're watching this later on Odyssey, what I encourage you to do is for next Mondays, come live. Because there's something fun about the live broadcast. You can ask your questions live on the air and we'll watch them. And of course, you'll have to be on Rumble, YouTube, or Facebook to do that. Because that's where we stream live. Ms. Brenna says, I'm dealing this with my children and grandchildren. Thank you for this advice. Amen. You know, really, really good counsel. What I can tell you about Pastor Arch, I've spent time with him and his wife, and they're the real deal. They have joy. I've made it my business to find people that are that inherit the promises of God, that walk in the grace of God, and have the joy of the Lord. And so I'm telling you, I've seen this guy many times now, and it's consistently joy, you know, just the right kingdom mindset, optimism about and hope for the future. And so that's going to be our last question. Where do you see, and I know we talked a little bit about dates today, but where do you see this going for the three different groups of people, I guess? The first would be the poor now. Where do you see them at in a year from now? The middle class, and then the wealthy. If you don't mind.
The majority of them all will be wiped out financially. The poor, in many areas, the poor will do better because they've always been poor. They don't know how to live in poor. And so in some areas, the poor will do better. The middle class might be hurt the most. And, of course, the wealthy who lose their money, they're really stuck because all their trust was in money. And the question, how soon is this going to happen? I believe this big crash that we're talking about, it's already started. So we're going to see it this year. This is not something long-term in the future, but the global elite, the one world government people are pushing so hard for this to happen. And the Bible says this is going to happen in the last days.
Yeah.
It says it's going to get worse and worse and worse. Rapture happens, and then we hit into the Great Tribulation.
Wow.
So we're really right on the edge of the Great Tribulation. The Bible doesn't give a lot of prophecies of what to look at happen before rapture. It does to the end, which is the period after the Great Tribulation, at the end of the Great Tribulation, and it talks about the what's going to happen during the tribulation. But we are so close to what's happening in the Great Tribulation. If rapture's before it, we are in the last minute of the last hour.
If you had to give your personal guess, I've given mine live on the air, which I don't know how smart it is. And we don't pick a day or the hour, but, you know, the seasons are clear to see. And we know Israel became a nation. And May 14th, 1948, you have the fig tree bud again, which is, you know, what a crazy fulfilled prophecy. You can't even imagine. And being a preacher in the 1800s and seeing that prophecy and being like, well, it's got to be, you know, a metaphor. It's got to be figurative, but then we see it happen in our own lifetime. It's real. So what do you, if you had to give your own personal rapture date, I know it's speculation.
I think it'll happen this year.
Wow.
I think it's happening this year. I think it's more likely on one day would be during the Feast of the Trumpets. Yep. The Bible doesn't say it has to, but it gives a lot of indications that it probably could. Feast of Trumpets is 3 days long, so we wouldn't know the day or the hour of the time.
And they actually call it that. They call it the day where they don't know the day or the hour, because I've heard this.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. So I think that, and actually there is 2 different Feasts of the Trumpets, because one celebrates on the Hebrew calendar and one's on our own calendar.
Wow.
And I think it's going to be the Hebrew calendar, which is October, because the calendar that we all read, that we have hanging on the wall, it's going to be September 6th. But October is the one that in the Hebrew calendar is it. So I think that the Feast of Trumpets, look for, I forget, I think it's 6 through 8 in the Hebrew calendar, October 6 through 8.
Wow.
Would be the 3 days, because it starts on sundown of 1 till Sunday of the 3rd day. So the Bible doesn't say it has to be. I just, if I'm going to throw out a date that I think would be the most likely, I would say in the Feast of the Trumpets of the Jewish calendar, the Hebrew calendar of this year.
And there's good reason. All the spring festivals were fulfilled on the spring day. Passover on Pentecost on Pentecost, right? So you're not just pulling this out of nowhere. This has been the pattern.
A major event has happened on every single feast except the Feast of the Trumpets.
And it's the one at the last trump sounds, it says, right? At the last trumpet sound, and the twinkling of an eye, will be caught up to meet the Lord in the air, receiving our resurrection bodies, and so will ever be with the Lord. What What an awesome promise. And so I'm with Pastor Arch on this. It's imminent. It's any day. It's so close.
Yeah.
And so October or September, what a cool.
If you remember Tim LaHaye wrote the book, everybody, what was his book series?
The Left Behind?
Left Behind series, yes.
Yep.
Tim LaHaye and I became friends, probably 2 years before he died. And every once in a while he'd call me, we'd joke about it. And every time he'd call, and I could see the call ID, who's calling, I said, so Tim, are you still out here? He says, yeah, every morning I wake up, I'm surprised I'm here. Of course, now he's in heaven, but he believed it was that close. And he didn't say it's going to be today. He never gave that hour. Yeah. He just gave the season. And the Bible gives us in multiple places, it gives us a season to watch for when it's going to happen. We won't know the day or the hour, but we will know the season. And a lot of people, including myself, believe that we are extraordinarily close, and the season could be the Feast of Trumpets of this year.
Well, that's awesome. And so, P.S. question, bonus round question. And I have a really strong conviction and answer for this, but I want to hear it from you personally. What's the takeaway? What do you do in light of that news? How would you have our viewer respond? What does that look like?
I have so many Christian friends who believe that we're going to be here through the tribulation. Mm-hmm. We're not. I don't believe we will. But they are spending so much time and so much money to prepare to live through the tribulation. We're using our time and money to get as many people in heaven with us before we leave. I want the impact that we leave on earth is the people we took with us, not that we survived the Great Tribulation. So it put a sense of urgency in us. We had a mansion in Texas, and we sold it a few years ago because we're going to have a mansion in eternity. Yeah. We don't need them both places, So that's what we're doing, and my wife is 100% on it with me. I'm not doing things that she's arguing against. It's not bothering her. Someday we'll have her on the show.
Yes.
But you got to ask her, not me.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
I certainly will.
But and then you can ask her those questions. But we have done this together. 47 and a half years we've been married. But we've been in agreement on this, and she has sacrificed as much or more than I have on this. Wow. So that's it.
Well, Pastor Arch, thank you so much. Hey guys, if you've enjoyed this, would you share the broadcast? Remember to go and visit letstalklibertytoday.com to submit your questions, because next Monday we're talking Noah's Ark. You're not going to want to miss it. I've already seen the DVD. I'm going to go watch the YouTube link because they are different. But check out that YouTube link. Check out the interviews. Get your questions ready because you'll want them to get answered. But
also, I answer a lot of these questions on Facebook. So I got over 200,000 followers on Facebook. So if you want to follow me on Facebook, a lot of the posts I have are answering some of these questions on the last days, on the financial collapse and so forth. Those comments, and I post them there daily. So feel free to. Facebook only allows me to have 5,000 friends. I can have as many followers as I want.
Yeah.
So you can't send me a friend request because I'm at my limit. But you can follow me. Just follow me on there, and then you can ask me questions on there. You can comment on my stuff. I don't know what the difference is between a friend or a follower, but
you can, and I personally follow, and it's awesome. So if you're looking for a really good, in fact, our morning bread this morning, we talked about choosing intentional social media content, designing your feed so you're only intaking things that are going to encourage you in the Lord. Well, I'm telling you, Pastor Arch's Facebook is one of my favorite. I go through and I hide a bunch of stuff that's negative or whatever, but you're one of the ones that I feed off the most. So definitely check him out. Follow him on Facebook and interact with stuff there. Ask questions. He's very responsive. I noticed that you're constantly responding to people that comment. I'm so impressed by that because tons of action on the post, but you're taking the time to respond. So
yeah, we throw funny stuff in there once in a while too because it gets people following for that, and then I've had many people who say I follow you because of the jokes and the funny stuff that you have on there, but then you hit some really serious things, and that's what gets me hooked. If you see some of those on there, that's just to.
I love it. Laughter is such a good and we do the same thing. That's what Let's Talk Liberty. I mean, part of what we do is a lot of comedy, as you all know. And
my wife is on too, Sherry Bonnema, Sherry, and she has room for some friends on hers because hers isn't quite so big. But If you want to follow her, she has a lot of the same comments, and you can ask her directly, so you're not getting my opinion of what she thinks. Just ask her directly about some of the trips that we took and some of the things we've been through, and the kids' problems with our kids and our grandkids, because we've had our share of problems with our kids too. That's part of growing up. And but if you want to ask her directly, Sherry Bonnema. And there's more than one Sherry, so go to my site and look at the one that's my wife. I think the last time I looked, there was 6 or 7 Sherry Bonnemas on Facebook.
Well,
but yeah, it's the one who's married to me, so
that makes it easy.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Pastor Arch.
You're
Appreciate
most welcome.
having you.
Love coming.
We'll see you guys, Pastor Arch. I'll see you tomorrow, but make sure to mark your calendar for next Monday at 8 p.m. You're not going to want to miss it. We're talking Noah's Ark. Until then, have a blessed day in Jesus' name. I'm going to play the outro here. Hey, do you want to pray us out, Pastor Arch?
Yeah. Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you that all of our needs are met according to your riches and glory. I thank you for the friends who are watching this. I thank you for the people who are just curious watching this. And I thank you for all the people who are spreading the gospel, spreading your word. Help us to be the most effective in whatever days that we have left.
Yes.
In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Love you all. See you soon.
So I won't bow to another